Are we live? We're live now, aren't we?
We're live now.
Hey, everybody.
Right. Hey, everybody. All right. First and foremost, let us know if you can hear us. I did all the levels earlier and we should be fine, but I'm using a different mic just so I can capture Danny and me at the same time. So if you guys don't mind, just let me know in the comments if you can hear us just fine. Hopefully you can.
Yeah. And then we can start talking about stuff.
Yeah.
We got a lot of stuff to talk about.
Sounds good.
And we'll just answer questions.
Yeah.
Let's just take them as they come in.
Yeah. Oh, hey, good. Nick. So Nick is like an old school NRD guy. He's been with us from the very beginning, which is really cool.
To let everybody know, Ron is going to have to read all this stuff as it comes through. You've seen me in my videos. I have to put the reading glasses on to see anything because I'm what am I, like 10 years older than you or more?
I think so.
No, like 12 years older.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Keep going. Yeah.
I can still hear really well, but the eyesight just went. I got to put the readers on to see anything close up. So yeah, I can barely see the messages. So Ron will have to take the questions.
I can do that. I can definitely do that. In fact, it looks like we maybe had a question come in or a comment. It says, Danny, I just replied to your post in my thread at your GR forum at Audio Circle regarding my Harbeth measurements and DOE I used for integrating my REL with my Harbeth. Thanks for your recommendation.
Oh, cool. Yep. I remember responding to that guy. Posted some in-room measurements of his Harbeth speaker. But it was on a huge scale.
Yeah.
You know, it was like 100 and something dB from when so it looks great. Yeah. Yeah. You crop it, zoom in on it and spread that stuff out. It makes it not look as good, but then you can actually see it.
Yeah.
And see, oh, wow, I really do have a 10 dB swing right here. And then you can kind of work on fixing that stuff. I'm that way with all my speaker measurements. You know, I usually zoom in, and a lot of times it looks a lot rougher than what people are used to seeing somewhere else, but I want to see it at that higher resolution so I can see exactly what's going on.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, I was thinking about something. They asked me this in the last live chat, and I'm curious, over the years, when it comes to sub integration, have you always, for the most part, allowed your mains to play as low as they can and then bring the subs up to meet them? Or do you introduce like high passes and filters?
You know, it depends on the system. A lot of times if you're not playing it very loud, you don't have much power on it. Like when I have a 300B amp on something, it's only 9 watts. So who cares? You're not going to push the main speaker far enough for it to even be reaching any excursion issues. So you can just let it roll off naturally and then bring the subwoofer in. And also if you've got an integrated amp, sometimes you don't have the ability to put an inline filter or something in it and just let it roll off naturally.
Yeah.
If you've got controls like what's on our servo subs, then you can make them.
You can do anything.
Do anything you want.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah. But typically with my preamp, though, is you know that there's one output that is limiting the low frequency. It knocks the bottom octave out of it a little bit, and I use that with most speakers, and then blend the subs. And I'll do like you. I'll set up the microphone in the room and look at left speaker and where it's rolling off, and then bring in the left sub and look at where they blend and try to get them in phase and try to get everything so it's completely flat. And then I'll move to the other speaker and do it the same thing on the other side of the room. And kind of dial it in. Man, we're getting a lot of stuff coming through.
People are jumping in.
We're going to have to start reading.
All right, let's see here. Good evening from Oregon. Let's take a look here. I'll use recommendations. Okay, let's see here. I saw an XLS Encore up for sale with a thicker front baffle and speak-on connector connections rather than standard speaker cable input. Does deviating from the standard impact this negatively?
It depends. A speak-on connector is not bad. It would be better than our just cheap binding post cups that we offer on the budget level, but it's a little bit short of the performance that you would get with the tube connectors. Like we use the speak-on connectors, but we use them only on the subs. It makes it easy to in fact, they're a 4-pole connector. It's one of the reasons we use them on the subs. So it's easy to plug that in. It makes a good connection, but for higher quality signal transfer, the tube connector will make it sound a little cleaner. And if that baffle's thicker, that's fine. You can make a thicker baffle, but you have to radius the backside of the woofer through hole so that it's got a bigger radius on it, because it tends to load the driver. Or if there's no radius on it, it'll cause diffraction issues on the inside. So bigger radius is when your baffles get bigger
Yeah,
or thicker.
that makes sense. Hey, Neil, I'll also mention you might want to just ask some questions, seeing that they've already deviated at least that much. Just make sure that everything on the inside of the speaker is what, the original crossover component should be. And they didn't do anything funky. I would just ask some questions, before you pull the trigger. Because I'd get nervous that maybe they've taken the liberty to
You never know.
well, let me just keep going and do this and change this. So, yeah. All right, let's take a look here. Ben Gleason has a question. Says, "Help me out with late night listening, guys. What would each of you recommend for a $25,000 system? I have 2 rooms, 192 square feet, and another 420 square feet."
Wow, that's a pretty big open-ended question there. I would say, before I even make recommendations, when customers ask me which of your speakers do you recommend, I want to know, how big is your room? How
Yeah.
far can you pull your speakers out into the room? Do you have treatment in the room? I want to know all of that information before we really go anywhere. So
Yeah.
I would say email me those questions. Email me photos of your room and kind of let me know what you're dealing with. And I'd be much better equipped to make good recommendations that way.
Yeah. That would be my answer as well, and I appreciate questions like this, and I wish that it was easy just to say, "Oh, just rush out and buy this
Yeah.
stuff." But Danny's right. The room, as you guys know, dictates literally everything. And so
Everything.
what kind of a room are we talking about? 192 square feet is pretty dang small. So I don't know what your expectation is with that particular room. 420s get in there.
Mhm.
That the room that we're in right now, the sound shed is 600 square feet. So
Yeah.
you can do a lot in a room like this. In a room 420, I would be curious to find out what are the dimensions, what kind of walls are we dealing with, and then we'd be able to help you out a little bit better.
Absolutely.
Let's see here. Red Star Wraith, another longtime subscriber. What would the sonic differences between the Tyler Acoustics Timekeeper T2 and the Bully be?
Hmm. Well, the Timekeeper is a nice speaker. It's got nice drivers, high quality parts, smooth response. I mean, it's everything you'd want in that size speaker. The Bully is completely different in that it's got a little smaller, lighter weight drivers. So you got a little more speed, a little more resolution, but mainly the fact that it's got a 12-inch servo controlled woofer built in
Yeah.
that will really let you do anything.
Yeah.
I mean, you can put it in a big room, small room, and just dial that bass in so that it's nice and balanced. And Ron did a little review on those things with the Brutes,
Yeah.
and I heard them over here. They were, there was a night we spent over here. We cranked up
Yeah.
everything you could think of, and we're just grinning from ear to ear at the levels we were listening to, and those bullies just ate it up.
Yeah.
And just said, "Let me have some more power."
Yeah.
Insane levels. Also, he does sound clips really well. He does sound clips of every speaker, and I think our bully
Number one.
probably
Still
has
number one.
It has the best. The sound clips sound more like the reference
Yeah.
source than anything that I've ever heard him do. And I listened to all of his videos and his sound clips and things. And I think the bully probably is the most accurate.
Yeah, you guys can chime in, and I know a lot of you guys have seen those videos, but if we're talking about when I do the reference clip and then I play the speaker back, for me, at least up until now, the bully is number one in terms of how close those two clips are. There's some clips where I'm like, you can barely tell a difference. It sounds like
Mhm.
the exact recording, except it's just in a room. Like
In
it's
a room.
exact. I mean, it's
Mm-hmm.
crazy. So,
Yep.
yeah. This is a good question. It looks like Green Beginner is asking, any thoughts on digital equalization? Ever heard of a truly successful attempt of digital equalization?
I've not played with just digital EQ. We work with everything on the other end. We're looking at trying to get a speaker to be as accurate as possible. And then the room is completely variable. We don't know what the room is going to be like that the customer has. And it could be a room like the sound shed here, which is really one of the best sounding rooms I've ever been in. I mean, the sound that we're getting in here right now is incredible. You couldn't put an equalizer on anything in here.
Yeah.
It's a perfectly flat response. So it's very ideal in a lot of ways, but you may put it into a room where the room is jacking up the response. But my feeling is it's better to treat the room. It's always better to treat the room. Let's say
fix the issue,
fix the problem.
Yeah.
Because let's say you have and if you look at Ron's videos that he did on the sound shed as he was going through the process, he was adding treatment a little by little and he was doing audio recordings.
Yep.
You could really hear the difference from one stage to the next. And let's say you have a sidewall reflection at 3K, very common. And so it makes the overall in-room response brighter. It's got a peak at 3K. And that EQ will allow you to pull that down, but the reflection is still there.
Yeah.
The things in the sound stage are not where they're supposed to be because you're hearing more from those sidewalls than what it's supposed to be. And so the EQ, it's kind of a Band-Aid. It works really well when you're below 200 hertz because that's the loading of the whole room. But room EQ really doesn't work. It's really kind of a Band-Aid. Now, if you've got a speaker that the response is really jacked up on, then you can go in and you can fix speaker related issues with that. But I've not come across, because I don't use those tools. I don't try not to get into using digital EQ on anything.
Yeah. My thoughts on that is it just comes down to where are you at in all of this and what are you looking to get out of whatever system that you're thinking about buying.
Mhm.
And let me be more specific. If you guys remember when I did the review of the NAD M10 many years ago, tiny little box. So like this modern approach to, being an audiophile. And it was a tiny, every possible thing stuffed inside this box, including Dirac, room correction. So ultimately, at the end of the day, it is equalization. It's dealing with, things in the digital domain of room correction and digital EQ. And if you were looking for like that type of a thing and you want to be done with it, you don't want to go to the extreme end of it. What I did like about Dirac, and this is where I think it can be useful, is it allowed you to set up a curtain to where any kind of correction that you're making with the digital EQ is you can have it apply to just the low end and then leave everything else alone. So you can pull that curtain back to where, say, I don't want anything processed as we go higher in frequencies. And I found it pretty useful in that regard. Like, okay, that's like the best version of it because you can kind of control that.
Mhm.
But I will say that any of the, and I think these are kind of falling away to the wayside, any of the older EQs or room correction softwares that would do everything, I'm not a big fan. I'm not a big fan because, in a lot of rooms, what you're going to find, and I talked about this a lot through that series, is the elephant in the room is always bass. Like that is the biggest problem that you're always going to be dealing with. And when you start tackling that and pushing that back and getting that under control, for the most part, everything else starts falling in line. For the most part, like the amount
Mhm.
of stuff that you need after that isn't as big of a deal as trying to get that bass under control. So that's my opinion. If it just depends on how extreme you want to get with things. But would I ever recommend somebody like building a sound shed and then diving into digital EQ? No.
No.
No, just treat the room. Like
In
just
fact, we've tried some of that on some products. I
Yeah.
know we've tried it at my place, which my room is fairly well treated. And then we run the room correction and then listen to it. And then we're like, dude, what happens? Like
Yeah.
it sucks some life out of everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yep. So, it was that Yamaha. It was that
the
Yamaha
Yamaha.
room correction, that YPOW
Yeah.
is what it was. And we both were like, this sucks.
Yeah.
Like
It did.
there was no sugarcoat. Like this is garbage. Like
Yeah.
turn that off. It was not good.
Yep.
So hopefully that helps. Well, hold on a second here.
Holy cow.
Yeah.
Guys, I can see we got a lot of questions coming through. So we may try to speed through some of these a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How much stuffing does Danny recommend in a mid-bass enclosure?
I like to make sure that you don't have bare walls in mid-bass enclosure. And if you have a clear path to the port, don't force the air to have to pass through a bunch of insulation to get to the port. And then the main thing is play with it and listen to it. Sometimes we like to put a little loose fill right behind the woofer on a lot of our smaller models, like the Encore and stuff like that. But if you overstuff it, it will start to sound overstuffed.
Yeah.
Yeah. So listen to it. There's no wrong answer.
Yeah.
It may sound more open to you if you don't put a little less in. It may sound too congested if you put too much in. It's just gotta find that Goldilocks spot, and then it'll work.
There you go. Danny and Ron, my dudes. Danny, all bias aside, Caladan or in extreme?
That's not a fair question. And those aren't even in the same price range.
Oh, hey, look at that. Clayton has joined the chat. Let's.
Is Clayton in here?
No.
I have to admit, for a plop out of the box speaker, the way those came in over here when Clayton first brought them in, I was very impressed. They sounded great.
Yeah.
But no, in extreme is a whole different level.
Yeah.
All across the board, whole different level. Multiple drivers, much faster. The tweeter's completely open. Whereas the Caladan's just the woofers are open.
Yeah.
And the Caladan is, like I said, it's not a kit. It's for somebody who wants to just pop something around the box, and it sounds really good.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, in extreme, whole different performance level.
Keep in mind, even though the question wasn't directed at me, Josh, the real question there would actually be Caladan or in extreme and open baffle subs, because
True.
I mean, have you ever anybody that just bought in extremes and no subs?
I've got a few guys who have their own subs that they use, and they want to use what they've got for a while until they can then move up and upgrade to open baffles.
Yeah.
But it's a 4-piece speaker.
Yeah, you got to have subs.
You got to have subs with it.
Yeah. Danny, I just received a pair of SSCS5. Is that the Sony CS5?
I don't know.
I'm not sure. I expect a significant improvement by upgrade. Hey, Daniel, I'm not sure. Can you, down below, can you actually expand on, I don't know what SSCS5 scan is. I don't know what you're asking us.
I don't know.
Maybe it's a typo.
But I can answer your question, not even knowing what you got. Everything can be upgraded.
Yeah.
Anything can be improved in some way or another. Even our own products, we offer upgrades to almost everything that we offer as well. So
yeah. What up, boys? Is that back left corner of the barn? Do you mean the sound shed? Yeah.
We're in the back left corner of the sound shed.
We are in the back left corner of the sound shed. We are. Has your take on the KLH Model 5 changed in any way? Have either of you heard their new Model 7? I have not heard the new Model 7.
No, I think the 5 came in for upgrades.
Yeah.
And all we did in it was replace some of the capacitors with better caps, tube connectors, some NORAs. It wasn't something we had to redesign. They did a good job. They did a pretty good job, and I said that in the video.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I liked the 5. It has an aluminum dome tweeter. It is what it is, but I thought in terms of engineering, it was fine.
Yeah, I mean, I've looked at a lot of the old school stuff, and the new take on old school stuff, and I think the KLH did as good a job as anybody for. They put decent parts in there. It wasn't cheesy stuff.
Yeah. All right, let's see here. We got Miguel asking, Danny, talk about the new NX Center.
The new NX Center channel. There is a big NX Center channel that is basically an NXotica on its side. And it was a lot to do, and it took us a lot in development. We had to wait for cabinets to be done, and there was a lot of drawings and stuff.
That's a big center channel.
It's a big center channel. I would say if you've got NXoticas or NX Streams and you're using it in a theater system, it is a perfect match across the front. And we have a stand that holds it up, supports it. It tilts it at the right angle. It's full open baffle. It's impressive.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Have you ever been to like a location where somebody has a complete surround sound of all your open baffle stuff? Like that would be kind of interesting to hear that.
That would, yeah. Yeah. And it's always different. I've heard my own products at shows, and I'm surprised I didn't even know that it was going to be at a show. Companies using it.
Oh, hey.
I'm like, oh, hey, yeah, you're using those. And that's always interesting. But it really all goes back to the room.
Yeah.
How good does something really sound? It's all about the room.
All right, let's see here.
We got a lot of hello, and
Says way too much buffering for me to watch. Are you guys having buffering issues? Hopefully you don't. It shouldn't be on my end. I've got pretty fast internet, so
We do have fast internet here.
shouldn't have any
We got
issues.
fiber optic connection here. It's just streaming pretty quickly.
Jeff is in here. He's a longtime guy. Boys, the dream team. I have to start with this question: Who you got, Jones or Miocic? Miocic. That must be another designer.
I don't know.
I don't know who that is. So I'm going to say Jones.
Yeah, we're talking about Andrew Jones. Or?
Andrew Jones. Yeah, I guess
Andrew's a great guy.
Yeah, Andrew's great. Let's see here. Nice tattoo. Thank you. I appreciate that. So I don't forget my kids' names. Let's see here. Can either of you guys share your thoughts and or experiences regarding the Linkwitz LX521.4?
It's funny kind of how that came about. He started with the Orion and great speaker, but like a lot of other speakers, it suffered from the sound of the baffle. The baffle was as big as the woofers were below. So he had this big wide baffle that went up there and then just a 6.5 or 7-inch woofer and a tweeter on it. So the Orion always sounded like it was playing from that baffle forward. And I've noticed it every time I've listened to it, and I've listened to it compared to some of our smaller open baffle speakers. And it was like, wow, ours are a lot more transparent than that. So at some point, he came out with that model that's a zero baffle design. It didn't use particularly high quality drivers, nothing exotic on it. And when you put a driver on a baffle like that has nothing around it, and it's just holding it there, the response looks like this.
Yeah.
It's just
You've talked about
it's
this,
like this huge rounded up because it's got nothing below, and you get this dipole peak, and it takes a lot of correction to fix it. And so he's using a lot of electronic crossover in there to correct all that and bring it down. So it becomes more transparent because you don't have a lot of those surface reflections. It's just the drivers itself. But the way that thing was mounted was it's kind of lightweight, the way it's just sitting up on top of something like that. And and then it had a ton of electronics in the path. All those electronics that's trying to correct all that response, it definitely affects the signal. It affects how it sounds. And then you've got amplifiers for every driver. It's a costly way to go about something. There's better ways to skin a cat, in other words. So
let's take a look here. Jeremy Mitchell, another longtime subscriber. Welcome to the live chat tonight here, Jeremy. It's good to see you. I thought I smelled trouble. That's awesome. Brock is in here. Brock, good to see you, buddy. Let's take a look here. Oh, Ace of Spades is asking us, tell us about the new speakers you're collaborating on, unless you did so at the top of the show.
Yeah, we haven't really talked about that yet, but we kind of suspected that it would be asked about it because we've definitely been dropping hints about it.
Yeah.
This kind of all came about because Ron got a hold of some of the LGK models, in particular the 2.4 model. And that one went another level in performance when we put another driver on the back side. And it sounded like a full open baffle speaker in a lot of ways. And those little LGK drivers are stupid fast.
Yeah.
I mean, there's only like 2.5 grams of moving mass. They play and stop on a dime. And so Ron was listening to those things, and they got no baffle around it. The baffle is not much wider than the drivers. He's listening to it thinking, man, the vocals in this thing are crazy, and the imaging is crazy.
Yeah. And I had to have you come over because I was like, you need to really hear these in this environment because it blew my mind. It was so.
And for those of you out there, man, those LGK models, they're dirt cheap. We've got just JB polycaps in there and air core inductors, and we made it just as low cost as possible. Those are called giant killers for a reason, man. There's some things they do incredibly well.
Yeah.
And just beautiful sound. And so he said to me something along the lines of, man, if we just took one of your
I think I sent you some drawings. I remember drawing some ideas.
Like if we took that aspect and put a paper cone woofer underneath it that had the same sound. And I said, I've been thinking about doing that already.
That exact thing.
So it kind of turned out to be what would you like in a speaker?
Yeah.
And I listened to all of his input as far as looks, the styling, and what he expected to do. And we worked on that to create things that speakers that it's doing things that no other speaker really does.
Yeah.
I mean, we got it up in the corner of this, and we tested like 5 different baffles.
Yeah.
With moving that
Moving it.
driver over into the corners and looking at the response, and a lot of development work went into it, and the rear driver and how low we're allowing the rear driver to play, and then we went to high quality parts, and then we went to wiring that's been treated in a way that's unusual, and then some new technology from Shinyata Research. It's never even been in a speaker before ever. I
Yeah.
mean, there's definitely a lot of new technology going into this thing, and the fact that the driver, being a wideband driver, is totally time and phase coherent over a really wide range.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no phase shifts anywhere.
Yeah.
So everything
250 and up, you've got nothing.
250
There's no-
hertz and up, it's that one driver covering the whole
Yeah.
thing. So the imaging is easily better than any speaker that I've ever touched, heard, played with, listened to, nothing. I mean, any price point. And I'd say the vocal region is probably better than anything I've ever really done anything with. The vocals are just, they're just suspended in air right there in your room,
Yeah.
you know. So we've had 3 prototypes, and right now I'm getting 100 pairs made as far as cabinets.
Yep.
Probably 3 different finishes.
Yep.
We get a little further along on there. We'll dive in and really start introducing this thing.
Yeah.
And then
We'll market it correctly and tell you guys all about
Yeah.
it and all that kind of stuff.
really doing the homework and doing it right. And it's only going to be offered fully assembled.
Yeah.
And then there's 2 more models.
Yeah.
Above it. The first one, LGK on each side, and then there's an M130 below it. So stand mounted, 3 dB down, mid to low 50s, and we've blended them with. So they're sitting in here right now.
Yeah. I can hit 45 in here clean, like
Yeah.
clean down to 45, no problem. And it's a beautiful drop off.
We've added the open baffle servo subs, and then Ron's got some subs over on the sidewalls that have dialed in, and
Yeah.
it's stunning in here.
Yeah.
It really is stunning. I've never heard really reproduction like this in some regards.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, it's spectacular. We've had a few people over. There's quite a few people have been over to GR Research, and we've played it for them, and it's just
Same reaction. They
jaw hits
they
floor.
can't believe it. Like,
Yeah.
wow. Yeah.
So that's
It's exciting. It's coming. Yeah. And the more that as we get closer to that finish line where we can start talking about it, and there's a reason to talk about it, because then you guys will actually be able to buy them in the near future. We'll talk about it more and get into the nitty gritty and details of it.
Absolutely.
So, but yeah, they're insane. I mean, I haven't been getting a lot of work done because I've just been listening to them, and
We're the same way with it. We're like, I'll have customers come and they want to hear bullies, they want to hear in extremes. You know, we'll set up anything they want to hear.
Yeah.
And then when they're gone, I'm like, man, I got to put these back in and listen to them again.
Yeah.
It's like those just keep getting put back into the system. And you guys have seen them in my videos. They're behind me back there, and it's because that's what I'm enjoying listening to right now.
Yeah. Yeah, it's incredible. I'm over the moon. I couldn't be more happy with those speakers, and
They're really impressive.
there's going to be a lot of folks that get those, and they're going to be full of joy.
Next level.
It's next level.
Yeah, we were even Hobbs and I were talking about the other day. We were saying, all right, if these are a 10, like at that point, how far down and we started naming speakers, and we're like, okay, those would be like a 7 or an 8 compared to these. You know, like it's like a new benchmark.
Yeah.
So, all right. I bet there's a lot of questions now.
Yeah, there are. So we'll move on. Also, can you please share your thoughts on Class D amplifiers and the impact of GAN FET in Class D?
I've only played with some of the Class D.
Yeah.
You know, I've got chip amps at the shop there that are really good, but they're not really Class D.
Yeah.
I don't know. So I've heard some that are good.
Yeah. I don't stick my nose up to anything Class D at all. For me, it's
good. It's good.
If it sounds good, it's good. And that's that. So I have no problems with Class D. And I think specifically with GAN amps, like we're talking about, the name escapes me. Purify, is that the company that does that funky, ugly woofer, the Purify woofer?
Yeah, those are
that beautiful woofer.
Not bad woofers.
Their amps, I had their amp, and it was incredible. Like, I felt like it just got out of the way. So it was more about what you're feeding the amp had a flavor than the amp itself. So no problems with Class D. The build and design of the sound shed was like the quality of an R&D engineering project. Hey, I appreciate that. Thank you.
It was.
Thank you, thank you. I watched the video on the Yamaha monitor you improved. You showed issues with peaks and ringing. I'm wondering if the drivers were abused over time, causing the issues.
Which Yamaha is he talking about?
He doesn't say. He says the video on the Yamaha monitor you improved. You showed
so it must be one of
issues
mine.
with peaks and ringing.
Oh,
I'm
that?
wondering if the drivers were abused over time.
No, I mean,
Would abuse on a driver cause a?
no,
It wouldn't.
no, it won't cause the ringing on there.
Yeah.
Abuse over time if the voice coils get burned.
Yeah.
The impedance changes and the levels change.
Yeah. Like it'd be very audible. Like
Yeah, it'd be real
this
audible.
sounds like a blown speaker.
Yeah, the ringing was inherent to some of those drivers.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right, let's take a look here. I guess that means there won't be self-powered speakers from GR Research.
You know, I've looked at some of these little inexpensive amps. In fact, I had some sent over that I considered.
Yeah.
No, they're such a bottleneck. The amplifier is such a bottleneck, especially if you put an amplifier and a DA converter and all that into a speaker. Man, I mean, you just saw Ron just reviewed that new Denafrips DAC.
Yeah.
And we're comparing it to a Maydac. I mean, to me, that's kind of a good reference level, spot to be in. When you start talking about the DA converters that are in those little bitty amps that are built into a speaker, it's like, man, it's like they're not even in the ballpark. So
yeah,
no, even the amps themselves, sometimes those amps they're priced really low for a reason. They don't cost anything to make, and so you get what you pay for.
Yeah. JR is saying, I would love to see a GR Research kit that used snap-in trim rings around the woofer for a nice, clean, finished look. I know it sounds hard, but I think it would look really good.
Hey, maybe onto something there. I've always looked at everything from an engineering standpoint. And when I got my hands on those drivers with polymer frames, it was like there was no going back.
Yeah.
I mean, I literally have photos of when I jacked up my car and I set the car on those frames, and they didn't bend or break. They're super strong.
Wow.
We put thousands of pounds of weight on those.
Wow.
I have photos of them, and they don't ring.
Yeah.
And almost every other frame out there, at some point, there's some resonant or ring to it. And at some point, you excite that resonance of the frame, and it rings, and it's audible.
Yeah.
And these just don't. And so I've stuck with that same manufacturer. We've done different sizes and stuff, but I love those polymer frames. If there was a way to make it look even cooler, I'd be up for that. But for right now, that's the way they're made, just because I worry more about the sound than I do about how it looks.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. Man, you're the superstar tonight. All these questions
Everybody's
are
asking
for
questions
you.
for me?
Yeah. Did Danny like the Yamaha RN2000A?
Which one was the 2000? That the speakers that were over here?
No, I think the RN2000A was that integrated amp.
Integrated amp?
And I don't think you cared
No,
for it.
I didn't like it.
You thought it was way too forward.
Yeah,
everything was in your face.
You brought that over, or I took it to my place. Or
we wanted to try. I wanted to see what the room correction would do in your room.
Yeah, that's why it came over to my place. Yeah, I wasn't impressed with it.
Yeah,
it reminded me of my old system from college. I had an old Yamaha R2000. It was their top model. Receiver back in the day, and it was big.
Yeah. Super dynamic, plays
it
loud.
Looks the knobs, the controls, and everything look exactly like the brand new one.
Yeah,
it's like the styling hasn't changed at all. I thought that was cool, but compared to what I normally have in and out of the system, it's like,
not for you.
I didn't like it.
All right, hi boys. I have a Hegel H390 on a pair of ATC 19s. What level of DAC should I go to get a reasonable improvement over the DAC in the 390?
That was for you, man.
Yeah, I've reviewed the 390, and I didn't think that. So this gets complicated. I have the Maydac, so I already have like a pretty dang good DAC, and I obviously use that in the 390. And when I tried the 390's built-in DAC, I felt the way that felt to me was like, it's fine for somebody that just doesn't have a DAC, that is planning on getting a DAC in the near future. But there was nothing about it that blew my mind. There was nothing about it that was even close to the level of the Maydac. But where answering your question gets difficult is Well, we're talking about going from a Maydach, which is $5,000. I mean, that's an expensive DAC, all the way down to free, which is what you already have in your amp. Where do you go from there? There's a lot of DACs out there that I can recommend. I will tell you, um, and I need Danny to hear it. That Pontus 15 is really good. And when I posted the clips on between the Maydach and the Pontus, I was very much, well, I was surprised and wasn't surprised that, because I didn't tell you guys which DAC was which, it was like game on, which one do you like more? A ton of people prefer the sound of the Pontus 15 over the Maydach. And I'm seeing comments that I completely agree with, that I knew this is exactly what they're going to say, is it's just smoother. It just has a smoother type sound. And so if that sound is like appealing to you, something really smooth, kind of, relaxed and chill, then that Pontus 15 is a beautiful sounding DAC. And that would be one that I could easily recommend.
Did somebody say you working on a new flagship? I can barely read that without my
Oh,
glasses.
yeah. Look at that. Good call. It says, Danny, are you working on a new flagship?
Nope, just those new speakers that we just talked about.
Yeah.
And I'm working on some new speakers for another company. I hinted about that development in another video where I showed a new tweeter mid pod. So we've got some of those production units in that we're working on. So that's something that's coming that's pretty cool. But it'll be sold for another company.
Derek is asking, hey fellas, with the advent of hyperinflation taking a bigger chunk of our spending dollar, will we see more innovation in entry-level gear? Seems to me that high-end is getting more and more out of touch.
Question.
Man, that's a great observation.
I'm kind of hoping really that inflation will start turning back the other direction.
I hope so.
Without getting political, I don't want any political comments here. Inflation really comes down to more money is being supplied than there is, the use for the money. When you flood the market with money and there's an excess of something, it loses value. Simple as that. When times are tougher, when people are having to work hard for that money and earn it, it holds more value because it has more value to them. So I don't know. I'm optimistic that things will turn. But we're still seeing things in the budget price points that are getting a lot better than they ever were. I mean, especially in the digital domains.
Oh, yeah.
Like DA converter. That's just like computers. Computers get faster and faster.
Yeah.
And for less money and less money. And we see that in audio as well.
Yeah, I also would add on, I think there's a lot of promise. I obviously made that video talking about all of these cheap Chinese amplifiers. And it's like, is this the revolution that we're waiting for or looking for? And I know that I turned the table around on that video of what it is that I'm looking for. And I knew that you guys were able to understand what that essentially means is these little cheap amps aren't going to necessarily provide that, meaning soundstage and opening up in interesting ways. But there's a lot of promise in those with this op amp thing. And being able to pull out op amps and swap them out for different op amps. I mean, I'm sure that a lot of you guys have watched my channel, and if you don't go to Danny's channel, he posted a video about his experience of in his DAC, which is very customized and made by a dear friend of his that had passed away, and other guys that have all developed and worked on this DAC, and it's had the same op amp in there since then.
Yeah, for 12 years.
10 years, a long time.
It's been a while.
And I put a Sparkos op amp in one of the DACs that are kind of like his, but before his, not customized. And I couldn't believe it. Like I couldn't. We're not talking subtle here, guys. We're not talking like, are you sure there's a difference? Anybody would be able to be like, holy crap! Like this is massive. And so that was a time where I was like, Danny, I don't care what you're doing. You need to come over. You need to hear this. And
I love it when he does that.
Yeah, you need to hear
every
this.
now and then he'll find something.
It's good. Like,
dude,
okay,
you need to come and hear this.
Yeah.
And I do the same to him every now and then.
Yeah, you got to get over here and hear this. And anyways, there's a lot of promise. And I'm going to be exploring this very soon of what happens as we start pulling out those cheap op amps, putting in decent op amps, whether it's from Sparkos or Staccato or Burson? What happens?
Mhm.
And hopefully in the near future, I'll be able to answer those questions. In
Yeah.
fact, Danny and I are going to be shooting a video where we're doing exactly that. And we're swapping
We did
op
that.
amps, and we're going to
Yeah.
be sharing our opinions and what we're hearing.
We had a little shootout over here one day. Hobbs came over, and the
Yeah.
three of us, we were listening from one to the next, and it was awesome.
It was awesome.
Yeah, a
Yeah.
lot of fun.
Yeah.
Also in the budget area, build DIY kits. Build up like X series kits, man. There's your bang for the buck right
Yeah.
there. Yeah.
All right, let's take a look here. So, Danny, I've seen a lot of info about the double trouble and triple servo subs. However, I haven't heard anything about a single servo sub. Is there a reason for this?
I know we have a single sealed servo sub that we sell a lot of, and it's used in the bottom of the bully. A lot of customers use it in home theater, and they're used in situations where you can't pull a subwoofer 3 feet or more out into the room. Then the standard sealed subwoofer works really well. We do sell a lot of those though. I'm not sure why we don't see as much feedback on it. Maybe if you visit the audio circle, you can see where a lot of our customers post. You can get a lot more feedback on our products over there. What else we got, man?
I may have to cherry pick some of these guys. I'm just looking for some that I think are going to kind of help everybody out. So bear with me. Let's take a look here. Danny, I bought your top of the line power and speaker cables and I'm very happy with them. When are you going to be selling XLR cables?
Good question. We're not diving into XLR cables at the moment, but we do have some brand new interconnects that we spent 6 or 8 months in development. I mean, just really comparing and tweaking and listening, and it's very labor intensive to build them the way that we came up with. And so we've got a company that's doing the assembly work on those right now. In fact, I've paid a lot of money to have them start that process and just send raw materials over. So before the end of the year, maybe the first of the year, you're going to see some really high quality interconnects and at really good prices. Not stupid prices, good prices. But XLRs, I haven't gone into the XLR area yet. XLRs are more difficult to do. Think of an XLR is designed so that it filters any noise that it picks up along the way. So it knows it's an antenna. Anytime you have something like that, it's an antenna. It's picking up noise.
Yeah.
So it's designed to flip that polarity back on each end, and it cancels it out. Whereas the RCA cables, we tend to use those as a filter itself. So we're actually actively filtering the noise out by the geometry of the cable and the way the cable is made. So it's removing noise that's maybe already on the system, not noise that was picked up by just that cable. So it's a little bit different. I like the single-ended RCA cables better myself.
It's awesome. Hi to both. This one stood out. Hi to both of you guys from the Philippines.
Wow.
Philippines audiophiles and do-it-yourself music lovers.
Hello over there in the Philippines.
Hello over there.
Yeah.
This question is awesome. This is a great question. This says, Danny often talks about how speakers are built to a price point. So my question is, if Danny had to design a speaker that's only $300, assembled, finished, and shipped, which corners does he cut?
That's a great question, because I've done this before. I've done this. There was a company called AV123 that was real popular some years ago. And the owner of the company came to me and he said, what I want to do is I want to build this, the best speaker we can build for no money. Like, he had a budget of $200. And he said, what can you do for $200? And then he intended to sell them for like $10 more than it cost. And he was just going to give them away as a loss leader. Instead of spending $50,000 in advertising, he was just going to give these away as a loss leader. And we came up with the XLS class. We call it the Classic. It was the original XLS model. And it won awards everywhere because no one could touch it, because it should be priced at $1,000 by the cost to produce. And it had air core inductors, and it had polycaps in it. It had good resistors, and it had our M165 woofer and an inexpensive dome tweeter. And he was having cabinets made over there in China. The whole thing was assembled in China, and it was $199 a pair. And he was $199 a pair is where he started selling them. Then I think he moved it to $219 a pair. And again, they won everything. Every company, every magazine, gave him an award. And then he came to me later and said, how can we take this a little further still? And so we took the Peerless Tweeter, which is really one of the best known tweeters, and put it in that. And thus the XLS Encore version, which now we still offer after they closed up. We kind of took all of that product line that I designed and we started offering it as kits. But if you really want to do something for $300, the way to do it is to build a kit.
Yeah.
Because it's the labor cost that really costs. It's the assembly. And if it's sold through stores, it's dealer markups. And almost every store wants 50 points on anything in those price points. So it's a lot of markup.
Yeah. It's kind of, it's a tricky question, isn't it? Because it's like, well, $300, are you talking about like, I have a corporation and I have manpower in China that's going to be helping with this? Or are you saying do all of that here in the United States?
Can't do it.
Good luck.
Yeah.
Good
that's
luck.
Tough. I mean, not to do anything of real quality.
Yeah.
If it's worth the money, at least at those price points, just build a little XLS Encore or X Bravo and just do the base level kit and build it yourself and build the cabinet yourself, and you'll have no money in it. But something that you can be proud of.
All right. Danny, can you see this? I don't want to read. Are you
Is this the Shinyata harp device? Wow. We're working towards the application of harp devices built into the speaker. Absolutely.
I wasn't sure if you were allowed to say anything about that. So
that's a whole subject there that is going to invoke a lot of questions. Like, you guys are going to have to visit Shinyata Research to see what that stuff does.
Yeah.
We have some of those devices in here that are external that they've sent us, and we've tested various versions of those things.
Yeah.
The best description I can give you from what I've been told is they damp out the resonances of the dielectric material in the wire.
Yeah.
And I know you look at that and you hear me say that and you think, man, this is the craziest snake oil crap I've ever heard. But
you're just making up a bunch of words.
Making up a bunch of crap. But we can clip those devices on and off the speaker. While they're playing, we can just take one leg off and put it on, and we've done this for people.
Yeah.
And it's immediate. Like,
you hear a difference.
The focus of the imaging is so much more coherent, and it's immediate. And it's like, you can't deny it. I mean, you don't have to be an audiophile to hear the difference in what this stuff is doing.
Yeah.
And it measures no resistance really of any kind, no inductance, no capacitance. What he's done inside those is very secretive and impossible to reverse engineer.
Yeah.
I mean, I know a little bit about how it's made. You couldn't even x-ray it and figure out what's in that thing.
Yeah.
But it is a very unique little device, and what it brings to the table is incredible.
Yeah. It's one of those ridiculous things that once you hear it, you can't unhear it.
And then you can't take it out of the system at that point. You're like, wow, that was so much image focus. It's like,
yeah, you got to have it.
Like, and it's not cheap to make these things. They're expensive. So it does hit the cost of the stuff quite a bit, but man.
Let's see here. Mark is asking recommendation for a new DAC on a budget: Geshelli J3 Pro with Sparkos op amps, or entry-level R2R ladder DAC to augment my Eversolo DMP A6 Bucar A500s, which is fully acoustic panel treated 450 square feet. So, okay. I don't know about Geshelli. I don't know what
I've only heard them at a show and in headphone. They had headphone systems set up, and they did sound really good.
Okay. Yeah, I've reached out. If Geshelli, if this speaks in volumes, I've reached out to Geshelli, and for some reason it's going nowhere. I don't know what the deal is with that. So if you guys want, send them emails and be like, yo, send something to Ron. They'll probably listen to you and they'll take it a little more seriously. And I'll have to chat with Randy, because I know that Randy knows the Geshelli folks pretty well. I would love to check out their DACs. I don't know anything about them other than they have op amps and you can load them with Sparkos right out of the gate. So with my experience with Sparkos so far, I would say that's probably going to be good. And I'm excited to check it out. And then how would that compare with an entry level R2R? I can't answer that because I don't know what the profile is of a Geshelli DAC. I don't know what they sound like. So it's kind of a difficult I'd be lying if I tried to answer, is what I'll say. So I don't know. Verdict is out. Let's take a look here.
Someone has Model 5 is something. Model 5.
Yeah, I have the Model 5s, so that would be the KLH Model 5s.
Okay.
Love them, but with the new amplifier, the high end now seems a bit harsh. Any cost-effective way to fix, perhaps a soft dome tweeter? You get questions like this all the time. Like,
Yeah.
hey, can I just change out the
You
tweeter?
can't. Anytime you go from one driver to another of a different type, the frequency response is completely different. The crossover has to be completely different. Some of what you're hearing may be the smearing that's caused by those capacitors that are in there. If you just go in and put in a higher quality capacitor, it will clean things up. That's going to help a little bit. And then for your application, if you think it's a little on the hot side, there's a couple of resistor levels in there. You can bump them a little one way or the other and just bring the level down just a little bit.
Yeah. Let's see here. Comments coming in about new speaker. Very exciting. Can you let us know a general price point they will be at?
We're working
Should
on
we
it.
even? Let's not even open that can of worms yet.
No, because there's some things that are expensive going in. There's high end parts that are in these things.
Yeah.
And I already mentioned the harp device. We're still trying to figure out what that's going to cost me in quantities and buying those in quantities. And there's there's a lot going on still, but it's going to be reasonable to any high end speaker that any bookshelf out there. The prices are going to be good.
Yeah. I mentioned this in my other live stream, questions being asked, and I'll say it again. There's no financial interest on my part with this at all. So I wanted to mention that, and I'll continue to mention that as we move forward. I don't care about any of that stuff. Like whatever Danny does in terms of, money and how that all shakes up, that's his business. I just want people to enjoy these speakers. I think they're amazing, and it's a massive endorsement to the point where I kind of want to help market this because I'm stunned by these, and I think that that would be my joy more than money and all of that stuff, is knowing that a lot of you guys that have followed me over the years are going to set these up, and we're going to be experiencing something like I know exactly what you're hearing and what I'm hearing, and trust me, they're incredible. It's
one of them deals where you're going to have to actually hear it to get what we're talking about here. It's just going to sound like a bunch of hyperbole from us, but it's not.
Yeah.
It's next level.
Yeah. Yeah, it really is. Yeah, especially with anything in the vocal. Like
vocal region is like
game over.
The singers are right there.
It's
in
crazy
the room.
good. Yeah.
There's just no smearing or anything. There's so much speed and resolution
there. Somebody's already asking, can you pre-order them?
No,
not yet. No. We'll get to that. I promise.
Yeah. If we're lucky, we'll have cabinets here. First part of the year, I'll have cabinets in stock, and we're working on doing a circuit board that's high quality, pure copper traces that we can mount all the parts on to make it to where
just drops right in.
Drop it in.
Plenty of room.
And there's barely enough room in the bottom of that speaker for the parts that are in there, because the parts are big and they're high quality parts. And so there's a lot of little things going into the making of these. And so it'll get there.
Yeah, one of our subscribers, and you guys would know the name, and I don't want to name drop or anything, or without them knowing, but they came out and they listened to him, and I forgot to tell you, he said you need to call those things the tank, because he picked them up and he's like, it's like they're this heavy. Thing is built out of granite. I mean, they are heavy.
You knock on the top of it and it's like you're hitting on a little anvil.
There's nothing. There is nothing. So all of that stuff we've made sure, like you're going to
no cabinet resonance.
No resonance.
No coloration in those areas. Yeah.
All right. Brock is saying, I currently listen to my XLS Encores and they are amazing. Do you have speakers that are offer even more clarity, top end extension, and separation of3instruments? My hearing is down 20 dB above 6K. Brock, yes. Wow. In fact, those new XLS.
Yeah. New NX Bravos.
NX Bravos.
Yeah, NX Bravo and NX Studio monitors. Those are next level above Encores.
Yeah.
As far as speed and resolution and clarity.
Yeah.
big time.
Yeah, Brock, no joke, like no hyperbole. It's exactly what you're asking for.
Yeah.
Like if you're saying, "Hey, I love the Encores, but I want what you just said," the answer is actually the
Yeah.
NX Bravo. Like that's it.
Yeah, and it's a similar size speaker.
Yeah.
It's not expensive, or you can step up to the studio monitor, which
Yeah.
is a higher end woofer as well, and the tweeter's set in a little open air situation. It's open baffle, and yeah, it goes up in multiple levels. We've said for several years since we've had it, that's the best sounding stand mounted speaker
Yeah.
that I've ever done anything with until these new speakers came.
Until yeah.
You know, and it's give and take too. Like Hobbs took a pair home and he's listening to his NX Studios and he's going back to the NX Bravos, and then we're dropping these speakers in, and it's okay. The planar magnetic is faster, has
Yeah.
better resolution across the top end. But when you get to this, if you're into 3-dimensional soundstage and you're into that vocal where you just fall into the music, oh man,
It crushes it.
Yeah, it's a different ballgame.
Yeah. Brock, another thing that I should mention is since you're already used to the extension that you're getting with the Encore, if you decide to do the studios, what is the down on the studios?
It's like 3 dB down at 70.
70 hertz. So,
and that's anechoic. You may in your room be mid 60s. But
yeah,
it's a sealed box. It's not designed to play down low.
Right. So what I was going to say, Brock, is do you have subs? If you have subs, then it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Let's take a look here.
Yes, Purify woofers are like the Bucart. Yeah.
Purify woofers, just like the Bucart A10s you have to review. Yep.
They're over there.
They're over there, and I haven't even really. Yeah, I'm curious about them. I want to see what they're all about.
I've done design work with those woofers. There's a company that Norman, a buddy of ours, has a company where he's just kind of a small guy.
Yeah.
And I designed a crossover with the Purify woofer and our Neo 3 and a waveguide, and that it sounds really, really nice. To me, the Purify woofer is a better woofer than most woofers out there when you look at it below 100 hertz.
Yeah.
You know, the linearity of it and the way it's made and the travel of the
excursion.
It's all linear.
Yeah.
Everything is done really well. Now, where it gives up to some of our drivers is like from 500 to 1500 or 1000 to 2000. In those ranges, it's a little bit heavier moving mass.
Yeah.
Than it's like an NQ driver or an M165. The moving mass on our drivers is like half. So they're faster in that regard. They have a more precise detail.
Yeah.
But when you go down in frequency, it's like, oh, those Purify woofers are the real deal.
Yeah.
You know, they're really well designed.
Yeah.
You know, everything's give and take. There's always trade-offs.
Yeah, always trade-offs. That's true. Michael T is saying, Michael in Arlington, thoughts on isolation damping footers for speakers and slab foundation?
Rule of thumb for me that I've learned is if you have a solid foundation that's a slab, anchor whatever it is you're doing straight to it. The floor doesn't move.
Yeah.
You know, and if you can couple
you're
that
coupling
to the floor, you're coupling to the floor, you're doing all the good because now your speaker's not moving. And ideally you don't want your speaker to move.
Yeah.
Or your gear. You don't want your gear to move and be able to bounce around and stuff like that. So, but if you have a lossy floor, meaning like in Ron's current house, pier and beam, and the floor can move. And so what all those devices are that claim they're isolating or something, what they really are is a damper.
Yeah.
Like a shock absorber. And you put that in there and it improves things a lot. It can really improve image focus and things. So some of those things are inexpensive. Some of them are expensive. There's DIY things you can do. I remember guys used to cut tennis balls in half and set their gear on top of tennis balls and all kinds of things, and an inner tube. There's a lot of inexpensive things you can try that won't cost anything, and try and find out.
Yeah.
And if you want to spend some money on some really well engineered ones, there's some out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good question. Transmission line speakers seem to be gaining real traction. What are your thoughts on timing and phase with accuracy? Do you plan on designing some in the future?
Oh, well, we've done some in the past. Their old AV3 model.
Yeah.
And I remember when we started doing the work on those, that transmission line, getting the timing right and the length of it right, and then measuring it and realize all right, I'm a little off from my target, and then doing it again, and then doing it again, and measuring it and looking at the impedance curve and getting the timing right so that when that woofer is really moving out, it's creating a negative air pressure in the box there. But by the time it moves back in, the air pressure is exiting the box the other way. It's like doubling your surface area of the driver. And so it's a cool way to extend low frequency if you get all that timing right. And then we followed up with the N3, which was the same speaker with the Neo Tweeter, and it was a big hit until we sold out of all those Neo Tweeters we were getting from BG. We're going to revisit that now that we've come up with a waveguide for our tweeter. We've just done that at NX Bravo. We've just got in the test box for the center channel, so the dual 16 ohm woofers with that same tweeter. And then we're going to go back to that transmission line box that we did. That worked. I mean, we designed the box and it works great. So we're just going to repeat that. Also did it for Carnegie Acoustics. We use that same box size and style with an MTM for those guys. So transmission lines work.
It's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work to get it right. It's not that easy. It's hard to model. Let's put that. It's really hard to model. It's one of them deals where you have to build it and test it. And I'm not a big fan of doing it with subwoofers and things because there's a certain amount of group delay that's caused by that as well. So I would rather use a servo controlled woofer in a sealed box to play all the way down. So in a way, the advantages that you would be wanting to get out of a transmission line start to go away.
Yeah.
What else we got there?
Jimmy Max got a question for me. He says, Ron, how do you like using Clio compared to REW for measurements? I've thought about buying a used Clio setup if I can find one to have exactly the same measurement system for comparison. Jimmy, I would say this. If you are going to be doing any kind of speaker measurements, not room measurements, but gated speaker measurements like I do in my reviews, then I would say it would be worth the investment of getting Clio Pocket. Now, REW has come a long way, and you can actually do gated measurements in REW, but going back and forth, I think it's more complicated and difficult to do than it is with Clio. Clio's kind of designed for that function. And so, there is a learning curve at first to figure out how all of this stuff works. And if you decide to get one, by all means, like call me, whatever. I can FaceTime you and FaceTime with you and show you how to do it. I'd be happy to. If you're just doing room measurements, then REW is perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with that. And I think that spending the money on Clio would be silly if you're just going to be doing only room measurements. Just use REW.
Another thing about the Clio system is you get a microphone that's a calibrated microphone to that microphone preamp, to that software, and it's stupid accurate.
Yep, stupid accurate. And also you have now capabilities of doing, you could check resistance, you could check, capacitance, you can do
a lot of things.
A lot of different things. So, the sky is the limit. So, Jimmy, it just depends on what you want to do as to which one you should go with. Let's see here. We've got somebody saying the Lampizator Baltic DAC is excellent and much in my experience than the Maydac. Had a Maydac here for a year to compare. Really prefer the Lampizator. Well, that's great. I mentioned in the last live stream that this is a company that I would love to hear more DACs from. I've reviewed one of their DACs, and it was an entry-level DAC, and it was great. I liked it a lot. I thought it kind of had a euphoric type thing going on, and a lot of people love the Lampizator stuff. The idea of having a DAC with tubes in it, I have no issues with that, and I would be curious to see how it sounds. It'd be fun to check out. Let's see here. The Freight says, really appreciate you both. Danny, I just upgraded my speaker cables to a pair of yours. Blown away. Just ordered an upgrade parts for my speakers and can't wait to get that done. Thank you.
Hey, thank you.
Yeah, that's
appreciate
awesome.
the order and appreciate the feedback.
Let's see here. Let's see. Thoughts about Peachtree products? I haven't touched a Peachtree product in ages. When I started the channel many years ago, that was one of the first products that I bought with my own money. And that was like a long time ago. And I can't even remember. And I'm sure that my opinion about things have changed since then. So I don't know.
I haven't heard any of their newer stuff.
Yeah.
You know, they were owned at one time by Signal Path Corporation, and they came to me and had me design crossovers for some speakers that they offered at one
Oh.
time. And I remember when the
Is
guys,
this when David came out? David Solomon?
David Solomon came out, and what was it, Jim? I guess it was a Seattle. One came from Seattle, one came from Atlanta. And they flew in and they listened to the speakers that I designed crossover parts for, and they were on some $50,000 Dodd Audio tube amps and a tube preamp and stuff, and they were just, holy crap, this thing sounds so good. We don't know if you did a really good job or not. We're just not used to hearing a system at this level. You got any cheap electronics we can all have? No, I don't. I don't have any cheap electronics that we can play it on.
You got some cheaper shit laying around we can try? Yeah.
So they the next day aired in a Deca model, integrated in, and we threw that in the system the next day, and they were like, okay, you did a really good job.
That's hilarious.
But they have really good products, though. They do. The bang for the buck is pretty good. Now, some of their stuff had the Saber DAC chip in it. I wasn't a big fan of the Saber DAC chip stuff, but I mean, all in all, they had good products. I recommended it a lot.
That's cool. All right, we've got looks like one of our colleagues in here. We've got My Own Devices audio channel. And he is saying, Danny, some people say you're Texas slick.
Texas slick.
Do you consider that a compliment or a put down?
I don't know. I don't know what they mean by Texas slick.
I've been saying it behind your back for years. I'm like, he's Texas slick.
Texas slick. I might have to get that on a t-shirt. Yeah. Texas slick.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
AM says, Ron, I have been saving for the Holo Spring 3. However, after review of the Pontus, I'm having second thoughts. Which one would you suggest? You're putting me on the spot. I got to say, I need to spend a little more time with the Pontus. But I think I would take the Pontus over the Spring 3. I really do. I think that I need Danny to hear it too and just verify if what I'm hearing is right. I mean, again, I can't stress this enough. Like, you guys heard clips directly from the DAC. So it's a fair fight. And there was, I would say at this point, the majority of folks preferring the Pontus over the May DAC. So I would say, I think the Pontus would be the one that I would probably go with myself. Let's see here. Mark is saying, did you get a fixed set of Fozzy V3 monoblocks? One of mine blew, and they sent a brand new pair. I have zero faith, but the new set has been running 0.7 Maggies for a month with zero issues. Mark, yes, they did send me a replacement for the one that blew out, and so I haven't unboxed it yet. I've just had too much stuff going on. But there will be a pivot here on the channel, and I'll get back to that stuff and start talking about it. I got to be honest, with the amount of people with the attention that got of mind blowing, and then the amount of comments of people saying mine also blew, and then Aaron from Aaron's Audio Corner is like,
blew too.
Mine blew. I'm sitting here going, I don't know if I want to leave any of those running in my sound shed at all.
I know.
Like, I'm a little bit nervous about it. It's like, well, I burnt the sound shed down. I got to start over again. It's like,
it's true.
Oh my goodness. All right, let's take a look here. Jack Dale says, you're awesome. Myself and bro Neil have sent you the Sony CSS towers and the Yamaha NS6490 and small NS1000mm speakers. You guys are amazing. You fix the tower speakers. Will there be a kit for them?
For the Sony tower, I could offer that as a kit. It depends. I don't know that we'll have that much demand for that, but if some people are interested in it, we did design something for it. And thanks for sending those in. You sent in on quite a few speakers there.
That's awesome. That's cool.
Yep.
Jimmy Mack is saying LGK line force?
Line force.
Question mark?
That'd be interesting.
Yeah.
The thing about the strength of that LGK driver is using it as a wideband driver.
Yeah.
And if you want to get any volume out of it, obviously we have to cross it to something down low. You can't expect a 3-inch driver
to play bass
with 1 millimeter of X-Max to play down very low. So we're at 85 and a half dB sensitivity. So there's not a lot you can put onto those, to take them another step further. You start putting a whole bunch of them in a line, they just start comb filtering each other out. There's just huge cancellation. So you kind of lose some of that, what you're going for there. But I mean, if you hear them in the way we're using them right now, you'd think, what do I need anything else for at this point?
Yeah.
It's so over the top. But yeah, that's another topic I could talk about, man, is we went through quite a development of that LGK 2.0 driver. And Ron bought some of the original. He bought them himself, the 1.0s.
Yeah.
And they're sitting.
They're around here somewhere.
They're over there.
Yeah,
they're
on
over
the
there on the
ground.
floor.
Yeah.
Great sounding desktop speakers. And so we tried to take that to another level. And it took a long time to have another company, because the company that developed them or made them for us originally couldn't reproduce them. They couldn't get the raw materials anymore. And when you change just a little bit on those, it wasn't the same driver anymore. So we went through starting at square one. And originally the first ones had more X Max. They had 2.5 millimeters X Max. And we were trying to get that out of the newer ones. But once that voice coil got longer and it got heavier, we were having troubles keeping that linear response. And when they went to a lighter weight voice coil, then suddenly the response was beautiful, but but the X Max went to 1 millimeter. So when you're using them like the 1.0s or the 2.0s is just a desktop speaker, they're limited to about 8 or 10 watts of maximum power, which is plenty if you're sitting right in front of them on your desk. But you start cranking the volume up, and you're out of X Max. It's that way with any small driver from any company, and so there was a limit to what you could just do with them by themselves. And so we started matching them with those little 5-inch drivers that we bought on a buyout, and it's an inexpensive. All those LGKs inexpensive, but man, they're overachievers.
Yeah, they are.
But there was the only way to play those at real levels is you have to filter the bottom off. And we've got a second order filter on these here at 250.
Yeah.
And cross into an M130, and it's just seamless.
Yeah.
So there's just no way of scaling that into a line source. Not without going to a dedicated tweeter, and then by that point, you need bigger drivers. You need to move air, so it'd be tough.
Somebody is saying, I bet that new dome mid-range driver would sound great matched with an AMT tweeter.
Yeah, if I could just find a good AMT tweeter.
I know.
I've tested just about every AMT tweeters out there and have just not been that taken with them.
You can't cross low on them.
Yeah. The way a lot of them are made, they have no back cup on them.
Yeah.
There's no airspace. I know one company making one with a deep back cup, because I asked him, I said, why is nobody doing that? And he said, oh, you mean like this? And grabbed off one off the show and went. And I thought, yes, like that. So I do know of a company that could make some for us if we wanted to pursue that, but it's a limit on how low they could play. It might work with a dome mid though, but for real though, that tweeter we've got with it, not only is it really good, but it's just right on it. It allows you to get the acoustic centers just right on, so you can move up and down on that thing, and it stays consistent over a really wide range. So we'll get more into that dome mid here pretty soon. The first part of next year, we're going to see some
happenings.
I'll reveal some happenings with that thing.
That's awesome. Somebody's asking, do you sell B stock products? I think the answer is no.
No, we don't have any B stock products. Most everything we sell is a kit, and then we assemble stuff for demo. And so we treat it like B stock half the time when we build something to demo. We just roller coat it in some Duratex and hook it up so people can hear it.
Yeah. It's going to get beat up. It's going to
get beat up and moved around. And we just use them that way.
Yeah. Let's see here. Hi, Danny. What are your thoughts on Franken speakers, like swapping woofers or tweeters? Kind of touched on this earlier.
Yeah.
Basically, it doesn't.
As soon as you swap out a driver, you need to design a new crossover.
Yeah.
There's just no way around it. Not do it right.
Yeah.
And so by the time you start swapping out drivers and designing a new crossover, you might as well just build a completely different speaker.
Give me a second here. It kind of freaked out on me.
Oh, yeah. Get back to where we were.
All right, here we go.
We're way behind the 8-ball catching up with
I know. Oh, it looks like there's some super chats coming in.
All right.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate that. And also, just shameless plug here. Make sure you everybody in here. Make sure you hit the like button so when the video goes live, it just has a chance for reaching more folks.
So should we just jump to these super chats since they're probably throwing you a few bones?
Yeah, we can do that. Let's do that. Oh, look at that. It's Brent. It's Brent, our homie.
Wow. Brent.
Dude, Brent, thank you so much, man. Brent just threw in $50 into here. That is so kind.
Brent actually did get to hear these speakers in here.
Yeah, Brent, we were just chatting about you. I don't know if your ears were burning. I didn't want to. I don't like name dropping people without them knowing, but we were talking about you in here, listening to these speakers, and You were saying that we should name them the Rock because of how heavy they are.
What
And
was funny is the first few seconds of listen, he said, "Do you have surround sound on in here? Is there?" He was looking around and looking at me, like, no, it's just those 2 speakers. It's so holographic.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was digging it. Now you got to find your way back to wherever that
I think I
where you
just
left
did.
off. Did you?
I think I did.
All right.
I've gotten pretty good at this.
Okay.
Let's
I'm
see
glad
here.
he can read it. I can barely. He blew the fonts up right before we started.
Yeah.
As big as you can, and
We're
I
doing-
can kind of see it.
We're doing old man fonts. It's like,
Yeah.
all right, let's take a look here. Sorry, guys, I'm trying to cherry pick. I don't like passing over stuff.
What is this
but-
guy? Hey, Danny, I appreciate your upgrade videos.
Oh, yeah. So this
What
is
is-
saying, hello, Danny. I do appreciate your upgrade videos so much. I am inspired to update my early 70s era BMW DM7. Any thoughts on that?
Sure, why not?
Do it.
Yeah,
Do it.
if you like the speaker.
Yeah.
Sometimes those are the top end is voiced a little bright on those.
Yeah.
If you just replicate value for value and then just fudge the resistors levels on the tweeter down just a little if you want it brought down, and then just put better parts in there.
Yeah.
All those early BMW parts, everything in there was made by Benick. It's a Taiwanese company, and they get all the parts are sourced out of China, and it's very inexpensive parts. And you can go through and just value for value upgrade that stuff and get a lot more performance out of those speakers.
Yeah. How important is DCR in a passive crossover?
That's a great question. And in fact, we had some emails on some of this just in the last
DCR?
few days. All right, if we take a coil and we put it in line with a woofer, the DCR is the direct coil resistance. So that's the amount of resistance that the coil has, and that resistance is going to decrease output. Now, when you're looking at a woofer, and let's say it's a two-way design and that woofer goes up to a tweeter, more than the DC resistance is going to, the factor that's controlling that is going to be the inductance of the coil itself. So if you look at an impedance curve of that coil, you'll see the impedance is going to rise as frequency increases. And that's a lot bigger rise and change in resistance than the DCR. So where the DCR is coming into play is ranges in the lowest frequency range before any inductive rise. So if you go from a 16 gauge to a 14 gauge, you're going to increase your output by about 1/10 of a dB. And if you go from a 14 gauge to a 12 gauge, you're going to increase that base output by about 1/10 of a dB. So kind of keep in mind, if you're trying to stretch sensitivities and trying to match sometimes, then maybe it's better to use a little more DCR and going the other way, like with the LGKs that we're matching to the M130 and this speaker in here. We're trying to bring the level down a little more. So you may go with a little lighter gauge to create a little more DCR and trying to keep it balanced. So it's not about the lowest is the best. Just because it's the lowest doesn't mean it's going to increase the output a whole lot. It will, but only down low. As you go higher, the inductance is going to be much greater resistance. And in a tweeter circuit and in a notch filter or something, a lot of times you've got resistance already built into the system. You got it already in line in the circuit. So going to something that's a lower DCR isn't going to gain you anything. You've already got resistors in front of it. So why go to a lower resistance coil? And sometimes the smaller coils can have a little bit better sound in some cases on the high frequency drivers.
Yeah.
So good question.
Yeah, it's a great question. Ron versus Danny in a 100-meter race. Who wins?
That'd be me.
If I can shoot you in the leg with a BB gun before we start, maybe I would have a chance. Yeah.
Yeah. For those of you who don't know, I do run track.
Yeah.
I compete in the masters classes. Currently, I'm in the 55 to 59 age group, and I have been ranked in the world rankings quite a bit. So if you go to mastersrankings.com and you start looking to, especially if you go back to 2022, that was a pretty good season for me. You can see me listed in the world rankings there.
Yeah.
50 meter and 100 meter.
Yeah.
That's typically what I run.
Yeah. Danny is fast, very fast.
And I've done 60 meter indoor.
Yeah.
And I've been ranked world rankings in the 60 meter indoor.
Yeah.
So
let's take a look here. Can you reiterate what speaker you're talking about? I just joined. Yeah, if you just joined and you don't know what speaker we were referencing earlier, there's a collaboration going on that Danny and I have been working on, and there's going to be 3 different speaker models that are going to be like under the umbrella of like an NRD type thing. And the first model that we'll be introducing is a stand mount speaker with using an LGK driver in the front and in the rear, and then a M130 woofer just below. And it's a ported design, and it's stunning. And it will not be a kit, so this is going to be a speaker that you'll just be able to buy. And aesthetics is going to be important. I'm a big stickler on that type of stuff. So they're going to look stunning, and we're going to make sure that it's going to be a high quality, beautiful speaker that you'd be proud to have sitting on a stand.
You can see some of the prototypes in some of our videos. Even Ron's been using it in some of his videos for different electronics and stuff.
Yeah.
And kind of as the, go-to speaker to AB the stuff with. And and you've seen it in the back of my videos.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, let's take a look here. Jimmy is saying, Ron and Danny, female voice, ? Play The Wind That Shakes the Barley by Dead Can Dance. Be ready. Okay, Jimmy, I'll remember that. Okay. I'll remember that, and I'll check that out on Cobuzz.
Sure. Always looking for more. I love female vocals.
I know. I know.
Man. Yeah. This morning I went through 2 albums from
Patty
Larkin.
Yeah.
And just sit there listening to every song. Yeah, I've been listening a lot lately, doing a lot of listening. I'm really enjoying all of it.
All right, so we have Audio Life is saying, "Hi guys, I have the Kudos Titan 505 speakers. They have great crossovers with very high-end components. They also have jumpers, which mean I can cross them over actively. Worth trying out, you think?" I'm not sure how that would work.
The only way you could try it actively is if the crossover is external.
Yeah.
And then you can try it. But a thing on if we go to electronic crossovers, like the old school electronic crossovers, most of those devices that you could buy back in the day have textbook slopes. And it's like just using a textbook passive filter. It's not specific for any speaker. So if you've got drivers with rising responses, or you've got drivers that have ringing or breakup and things like that, there's no way of correcting any of that with an electronic crossover.
Yeah.
There's no way of dampening any of that out. There's no way of controlling the phase relationship. It's kind of a shot in the dark. It's hit and miss. Those things worked really well crossing subs to main speakers because you're dealing with really low frequencies, but they didn't work really well in practice when you were trying to use them in a main speaker. But now the newest way to do it is, of course, all digital, and that's a whole new can of worms too.
Yeah.
There's pros and cons, and just like anything, there's digital crossovers that sound like crap, and there's digital crossovers that sound really good.
Yeah.
And there's everything in between, and it's expensive to do it right. The cheapest that I know of is Rich Hollis's system at Hollis Audio Labs. You can do some Googling and find that. He's got a really good system that's probably the best sounding system for the money.
Yeah.
If you really want to get into doing all digital
and that's
systems.
HOLLIS.
Yeah.
Hollis. Yeah, Hollis Audio.
Yep.
Andy D asks, "Hello, can you tell me where you got the diffusers behind you?" These are from ATS Acoustics. So if you go to atsacoustics.com, that's where you can get those.
And there's 3 different ones behind you.
I know, that's true. I can't remember the company for those. This is kind of a Frankenstein thing. This is a GIK impression series that I just simply framed, and then I had these little legs that I mounted onto the frame, and then they're just sitting on top of this diffuser. So, yeah.
This room is loaded with well-placed stuff.
Yeah. And
it's incredible.
Always tweaking and thinking, what else can I do? What else can I get away with?
Yep.
Hey guys, Danny, is there any chance ever seeing the Line Force or something equal in scale that we will have a chance to buy in the foreseeable future?
Just
the
go
old
with,
Line Force.
Just go with the NX Streams.
Yeah.
I had the Line Forces, and the advantages of the Line Force, which was all planar magnetic, big Neo drivers. I've thought about revisiting with the Radian LM10s, which is an even better driver than what we used in the original Line Forces, and using our Neo 3 tweeters, but it's expensive.
Yeah.
I mean, those drivers are like $300-something a piece. What you'd need a dozen of those, plus 32 tweeters, and then the frames have to either be milled in of aluminum or milled in a carbon fiber, or not carbon fiber, but a composite material. We used a composite that was really strong, and it was all expensive.
Yeah.
And so there was no way of doing that speaker inexpensively at all.
Yeah, by that time, do the extremes
I know,
for a fraction of the
for a
price.
fraction of the price. Now, they had advantages in high sensitivity and dynamics, but they also didn't play down very low. So those servo subs had to play up to reach them. Versus the in extremes is a narrower baffle. It imaged a little bit better. Things were a little more pinpoint in the sound stage, and it had a lot of woofers covering those lower ranges and crossing really low to the sub. So drum hits and things like that sounded more realistic. And for money's spent, the N Extreme is an easy solution. It's one of those speakers that'll do just about anything you want it to do, so long as you got a room that you can put it in. It's all open baffle, so you have to get them out into the room. But I would say, unless you're just a diehard all planar magnetic guy and you really need a 98 dB sensitivity, I would consider the N Extreme.
They're killer.
Yeah,
they're
it's
killer.
tough to beat.
Yeah, they are. All right, Danny, what is your take on the Lenium tweeters of realistic speaker Modella? Do you think that is something that can be done with a speaker that has that type of tweeter? Thanks.
I don't know which
Lenium.
Are we talking about?
Are we talking
like
about
the old realistic?
And it had, like
in a circular shape that was
mounted on top. I remember those speakers, and it was like a kind of an omnidirectional. It was a cool idea.
I think they had kind of a figure 8 shape.
Yeah,
mounted on there.
Yeah,
I don't know. Those things were made a long time. I've never tried to do anything with those.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Let's take a look here. NX Studio kit, or should I just wait for the new LGK? I do like open baffle. Boy, oh boy.
Yeah, we were just talking about that.
Kind of depends on your priorities and what you're after.
I know the NX Studio, I'd say, has a little more body to the vocal, and it definitely has faster, cleaner top end. Like cymbal hits have a sound more like a real cymbal.
Yeah,
but
imaging,
these
separation,
LGKs, if you're into soundstage imaging,
smack them a good one.
and vocals that are just so real that you just can't get past it. There's no going back. I mean, these new speakers that we've got with these LGK drivers, and they've become a favorite right now. I just keep going back to them for my own listening.
Yeah, same here. ABX Audiophiles in the house, another YouTube celebrity. Welcome aboard. That is awesome. Let's take a look here. Enjoy both of your channels. Danny, when you make crossover updates, do the manufacturers get upset with you? And the speaker updates, do the manufacturers get upset with you?
Only sometimes. Actually, I've had manufacturers reach out to me because now they want to work with me or they have questions for me. I don't think the manufacturers really get all that upset, other than some of the fanboys associated with certain ones.
They feel like
I've slided them.
What you're doing is offensive, and there's like
offensive.
An emotional attachment to whatever.
We had the Klipsch.
I think it's so silly. It's like,
I know. We had the Klipsch company reach out to Ron because he was reviewing some Klipsch stuff and wanted to ask me about how I was measuring some of the stuff.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, but you'd be surprised how many manufacturers send me stuff because they want me to try it, measure it, test it, do something, and then send it back to them. So there's a lot of stuff you guys never get to see, and there's a lot of gear that's been coming in lately that's just electronics or something, and sometimes they just want me to listen to it with my speakers and give them some feedback. So you never know. I deal with a lot of companies, but in general, no, I don't have any just contact me that upset with me. Of course, I've never posted a review of a Tecton or anything either.
Yeah.
I say that jokingly.
I mean,
I've done quite a bit of upgrades. I've actually shared.
I think he would take it really well.
I've shared that every time I've done an upgrade.
I think he'd give you a high. He'd probably send you some flowers. He'd be like, thank you for checking out my speaker.
I have emailed.
Nothing bad could happen.
Yeah. I've emailed Eric the measurements in my critique every time I've done something on the speakers. Like, here's what I just did, and and I've shared it with him. But he's a character. Yeah.
All right, so This next comment I want to highlight, and this wasn't a setup. So Brent is one of the guys that came out, was in the sound shed, and he's been around the channel for a long time, and
He has a good ear.
he has a good ear, and he is saying, walk the walk. Wait for the new bookshelf monitors developed by Ron and Danny. It's bonkers amazing. So that's his comment. Brent, the check is in the mail. I appreciate that. But I agree. They are bonkers amazing. I mean, they're fantastic. Let's take a look here. Just jumping in, and hope this has not been asked regarding your efforts to create replacement BG Neo 10s. Is this still ongoing and something that people can expect?
You know, I think the best replacement for the BG Neo 10 is the Radian LM10. It was designed by Igor Levinsky, same guy that designed all the BG stuff. And basically, when Christie Digital bought out BG and all those drivers became unobtainable, they couldn't. You know, Daiichi was manufacturing those drivers, so they couldn't make them anymore for consumer use. So Igor went back to the drawing board and designed a whole new product line of drivers like that, and they're sold through Radian. So if you visit their website, you can see them there. And we've tested some of them. I've had some of them in, and they're definitely a level past the old BG drivers. They're better built, lower distortion, cleaner, play a little lower, nice linear response, and they're more expensive. So be prepared for some costs there in those things. But yeah, nice drivers.
ABX Audiophiles is saying, we got the LGKs in the house right now. That rear firing driver brings some really cool stuff to the table.
They do. He must have the 2.4 model.
2.4s.
Yeah. It's crazy how good those things sound.
Yeah. ABX, hey, just a heads up, bro. If you have any diffusers laying around, try placing diffusers in the back beyond where that rear tweeter is. Like, play with the positioning of it, pull it back, try moving it in different directions. It can do some really cool stuff.
Yep.
So, yeah, that's awesome. Jimmy Mack says, at Joshua Clark at New Record Day, if Ron is interested in that, I can send my Wilson Audio Duet speakers to him. They have an external OEM, and the crossovers Danny did. The difference is not subtle. Yeah. Oh, that's true. Really cool. I remember when you did that duet.
I did the upgrade on the Wilson Duet. And he's really happy with those things. He's loving them. So
that is awesome.
He messages me on a semi-regular basis, and he's very much an enthusiast. He loves the whole everything, and it's just he's having a blast with it.
Oh, that's awesome, man.
Yep.
Do we pay attention to the audio systems in our cars as much as home setup, or just keep it stock?
You know, I was really kind of into it a little bit when I was in my late teens, early 20s.
Yeah.
You know, when you live in your car.
Yeah.
But to me, the car is just a means of transportation.
Yeah.
And
did
the
you ever
audio
do like subs and stuff?
I never did.
I could see you
Not
rocking
that much,
out.
You know,
Yeah.
I was at that time. I was so into building hot rods and going fast that I was stripping everything out of it that didn't need to be in there. That was any kind of weight.
Yeah.
Like my old Camaro had. I took the radio out, the air conditioner went out, everything. Just stripped that sucker down as much as possible because all I cared about was going fast. So
going fast.
Those whole teen years were kind of that way, and you know. And now I've got a new car, and it's got XM radio in it, and the sound of some of those factory systems is really good, especially for just driving down the road.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah. I don't care about the audio in my car at all.
And the stuff that I listen to while I'm going down the road is completely different than what I listen to.
Yeah.
You know, I may listen to Ozzy's Boneyard or Hair Nation or something until my wife says, I've had enough of the Hair Nation, and, you know, she'll put it on something else. But when I'm sitting down in here to listen to music, everything changes.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right, let's take a look here. ABX again says, oh, wow, check this out. He says, I've had 3 Fozzy audio products burn out on me. You get what you pay for, peeps.
Oh, no. Well,
man, there's been a lot of folks.
Do they replace them when they burn out? I mean, they warranty these things?
I hope so.
If they just keep wearing them?
I hope so, yeah. That's crazy, though. You'd think they would just make a better product.
I'd be afraid to leave it on, though, if it's that big of a...
They're all burning out, yeah. Let's take a look here. Adding to the GRS Neo 10s, they also make a Neo 3 replacement. Your thoughts on this competing driver and Line Force prospect?
We tried them, and we've put the new Parts Express Neo-10s in one of those line forces already, and designed a new crossover for it. And we've looked at their tweeters too, and the response is a little rough. And we didn't like the Neo-10s of theirs at all. The BG units were a lot better, and then the new Radian products are a whole lot better. So I would just skip right past those and just go straight to the Radian drivers.
Yeah.
Much higher quality across the board.
Yeah. Let's take a look here. Joshua is saying, hey, Ron, thoughts on ABX comparisons for electronics? Do you use them for reviews? Thanks. Many years ago, somebody had sent me a company, I forget the name of the company, sent me an ABX box. And that's just a box where you can not only connect speakers, but you can connect amps, preamps, and then with the press of a button, you can change.
You talking about the one that I gave you to use?
No. This was a totally different unit.
I loaned him a speaker switching box that Gary Dodd made for me with Cardus binding posts on it.
Yep. I still have that, but what was interesting about this is that you could turn it into a blind mode to where you don't know what you're switching. And so it was more of a reviewer tool.
Right.
And I have no issues with it. This is going to make me sound crazy. So I'm letting you know, you might be triggered. I got thinking about that the way that you would go about doing that. So here's this ABX box now with its own electronics inside that box that is doing all of this stuff and switching. How much is that affecting things?
It always does.
So I'm sitting there, now it's going to keep me up at night. Like, well, maybe this isn't the best way to actually compare because I don't know what these parts in here.
They're sucking up life out of something.
You would think so, right?
I know.
So
Gary Dodd and I went through this when we were trying to figure out a way to do a switching box that just switched from one speaker to the other.
Yeah.
And then he put an attenuator in there so that whichever one was a higher sensitivity, you could dial it back a little and balance it. And then we got to noticing no matter what, we liked the one that didn't have the attenuator in the path.
No matter what.
And it was a really high-end attenuator that was in the path, and it looped it back through the preamp to change the levels. And it doesn't matter. You can still always tell if you engage that in the path on a high-end system.
Yeah. Let's see here. Brent chimes in and says the AMT on the Spatial X5s are amazing. I agree. It's the same AMT that's on the X4s. And I think that particular AMT is
It's a good AMT.
It's a good sounding AMT for sure.
High sensitivity. It doesn't play down as low as you'd think, though.
Yeah.
And my only caveat with that driver is that it's 6 inches tall. So as soon as you stand up, all the highs are gone. It throws the highs in a range like this, and you have to be seated in that range. But it does sound really good.
All right, let's take a look here. Brent again says, I love the new bookshelf speakers. They're amazing. Thank you, Brent. I really appreciate that. And thank you again for the super chat. That was very kind of you. ABX Audiophile, super chat. Thank you. Loving the live stream. Happy Saturday, guys. Remember, no cheesy parts. Upgrade those crossover guys. Money well spent. Amen to that. Completely agree.
Somebody said something about a Polk model 700.
Oh,
tower.
good eye. Yeah, it says
I haven't done that model yet.
R700 tower speaker.
Yeah. A lot of those series that I've worked on from
You've
Polk,
been pretty happy with
those. Been
those.
really well
good.
designed.
Yeah.
Yeah. They just, like a lot of those speakers are built to a price point. Upgrade the parts quality in those things.
Yeah.
There's good bones there. There's something to work with.
Yeah. I also think that injected foam material that they're using on those woofers is kind of interesting.
Yeah.
You know?
It doesn't have a bad sound to it.
It doesn't have a bad sound.
Yeah.
It's like a lot of people that bought those R series like them.
Yeah.
And I get why. It's like, no, those are actually pretty dang good speakers.
Yeah.
You know? So Adam Brown says, I had an amp channel going noisy, that or a tube buffer, and the last time I turned it on, as it had other times without issue, it did a thump on the speakers. Now the right one sounds blown. I don't know what to tell you there, Adam.
Yeah, I won't tell you either, Adam.
Yeah, I don't know. Dave Apex says, Danny, sweet. I got some B&W DM640s. They're in great condition. For the music I listen to, they are fine, but I always wondered what parts upgrade I can do. Definitely better than money on new.
Yeah, I mean, the B&Ws across the board, they were built to look beautiful on the outside, and they put a lot of money into marketing campaigns at that time, but they didn't put a lot of money into the parts. So yeah, there's a lot of upside potential there. Everyone I've ever been into, I felt like they left a lot on the table. So yeah, you can go in and do some part swapping. You can always send it to me, and I can measure and test it. We do that service for free. You can see what it's doing. We'll email you the responses and give you recommendations, and then you decide what we do after that. So it just costs you the shipping cost to send it to me.
Condo Stereo says, any thoughts about why the bass port never exits from the top of the speaker for best performance?
I don't know. On a lot of the stand mounted speakers we've done, we've put it behind the tweeter, just so it's not directly behind the woofer. And it does help in a little way. Sometimes it's better that the port's on the opposite end of the box of the woofer. But in some cases, it's right underneath it. We've seen speakers where there's actual high frequency exiting the port, and it does affect the on-axis response. So
yeah,
a lot of times it's always better that it's facing in a different direction.
Yeah, my thoughts are, I mean, just looking at numbers, most audiophiles are dudes, and most of those dudes have wives, and I can only imagine, like, why does that speaker have a hole in the top? That's dumb.
Yeah.
That's dumb.
If you got kids, they probably put their Hot Wheels
They
down the
put
port.
coins. They would put. Oh, my kids would have a blast with that.
Yeah.
Oh my!
You have to teach your kids that those are coin slots and see what happens.
slots.
See what they stick in the speaker.
Dirty 30, thank you for the mention here. It says over 200 people are in here. Don't forget to hit the like button. So, guys, remember to hit the like button. We do appreciate that.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Thank you, thank you. Let's take a look here. I don't recognize that speaker. It seems like Wharfdale saw Danny's video on the 85th Lintons with the new Super Lintons improvements.
Yeah.
If so, that's pretty cool.
I noticed that.
I hope companies make better. Is this what you were talking about? And you said, hey, I want to talk to you about the new Linton.
Yeah, you know what? And Hobbs said something about it. We went online and you can see a photo of the new crossover versus the old crossover. And the old crossover obviously had a bunch of cheesy parts on it. The new one has more polypropylene caps in it, some better coils. There's still some parts in there. I mean, they're still building to a price point, but they stepped up their game. Yep, they upped their game. Yep.
That's awesome.
Yep. So maybe they were watching the videos.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and quite a few of the reviewers out there have reviewed them and said that they liked them quite a bit.
I'll have to get in a pair.
They're not stupid over there. They know how to make good products. You know, they were just a lot of that stuff's just built to price points, and so I'm sure the Super Linton is probably more expensive. It would have to be. They're putting some more money in the parts, and because parts matter. Yeah. So yeah, kudos to them.
That's awesome. RR Channel says, are you guys stereo or mono guys? Is speaker placement different for the two?
I'm not a mono guy at all. So
yeah. You know, the only time that I have enjoyed mono was when I used to spin a lot more records and I would be listening to a mono record, any of the like Beach Boys stuff.
Didn't the Beatles do a mono?
The Beatles, a lot of the Beatles stuff was in mono. There's nothing wrong with that. And it can actually be very enjoyable. I mean, that's how it was mixed and mastered and meant to be. And like specifically, even though I'm not a huge fan of the Beach Boys, I was blown away by the depth and the layering that I got even out of a mono recording of some of their stuff. It was pretty wild. So, and to follow up, I don't think that the speaker positioning would be any different. You're trying to create depth and layers, and you're trying to, it's going to be the same. Danny, did you help Magnapan with the
new crossover
I and X upgrades?
I did not, but we have had a lot of discussion with them about mounting their crossover as external so that the customer doesn't have to disassemble the whole speaker in order to do those upgrades. We've also done some new replacement binding post plates. Like Magnapan has those little steel plates on the back with the fuse holder and all those steel parts in there. We've 3D printed new replacement plates for those things for you guys, so you can just pull all that out of the signal path, and you can do a pair of tube connectors, 2 pairs of tube connectors, or 3 pairs of tube connectors, and just mount that in its place. And I did work with Magnapan earlier this year and develop, actually almost into last year, earlier this year, and we developed some woofers for Magnapan that they were prototyping in a new speaker that has a V-shaped open baffle section that's just it's 8 woofers per side, and it blends with some of their narrower towers, something that they were experimenting with. And they ordered a lot of woofers, so at some point you may see them release that, and I did design those woofers for them.
That's awesome. This is a really interesting question. Taffy is saying, my Totem Storm subwoofer or sub has a bass hump at 60 hertz. How do I fix it? So I got a lot of questions.
Yeah.
Starting with,
That's a room response
how
issue.
do you know that your sub has a bump at 60 hertz? And there's a really easy way to figure it out. Move that sub around and see what happens to the response and
Right.
see whether or not the response changes. If it changes at all, then it's not the sub. It's where that sub is in your room is exciting a room mode, and that's where your bump is
Yeah.
from that.
And there may be other ways you can adjust too. If you've got a mini monitor that you're blending that sub to, maybe that mini monitor you can pull the output of the bass back a little bit and split it. Pull
Yeah.
the output of the woofer back a little bit, so you may have your sub set at 35 or 40 hertz and your 3 dB down your speakers at 60, which will mirror image that room gain that you're getting. So
Let's see here. Brent says, my friend Jason, who I took to hear Danny's system, asked me, who is this guy and why are we driving 2 hours to meet him? And Jason is a car guy. Brent says, and I told him Danny is the Carroll Shelby of speaker designers. He makes Formula One race car speakers.
yeah,
That's a big compliment.
That's a good comparison. I appreciate that comparison there, Brent.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah, I've told people we're not. If you compare us to car manufacturers, we're not Ford, GM, or Chevy.
No.
We're not mass producing.
Yeah.
Something for the average person to listen to. We're more of a kind of a hot rod shop.
Yeah.
We're spending more time trying to get the most out of the customer's products, or designing our own products that are kind of more hot rod oriented. So
let's see here. Hello, guys. Thoughts on the use of 1-inch MDF versus HTF or Baltic birch for speaker cabinetry? Most GR cabinetry not made at the front baffle and side edge. Example: Sonus Faber Electa Amateur 3.
Yeah, if you look at look at void free Baltic birch, it's a lot stronger than MDF if you look at it vertically, like it's standing up on its end. When you look at it as far as resonance, it's if you're hitting it with pressure, it's pretty similar. It's stiffer, and sometimes the resonance is higher frequency, which is easier to control with like a sheet of no-res. Whereas the MDF is it's still very dense, but it's a lower resonance. It tends to want to flex a little bit more, but not ring as much. So you can make either work pretty well. You're not going to get massive gains by going either way. The other thing though is MDF is a lot cheaper. MDF is a lot easier to cut. It's a lot easier on tooling, and it's a lot easier to work with than void-free Baltic birch.
Mm.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Geo says PS Audio has 3, 8, and 10-inch planars that are visually identical to the BG stuff. Not sure if those are in-house or if they're sourcing them from somebody else.
Last I heard, I think they were getting those from Parts Express.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's take a look here. Oh, this is a great one. New trend in speaker design: distortion. Beyond frequency response, resonance, phase coherence, distortion is seldom mentioned. Some manufacturers talks about minimizing distortion now. Any comment?
Yeah, distortion is more often than not a marketing term rather than something real until things go haywire. If you look at a speaker and you're using it in a normal listening range, those distortion numbers, if they're in the 1% to 2% range, which is kind of normal, that's at a level that is at or below ambient room level. So if you turn everything off in your room, your room levels are 45, 50 dB. That's right down there where that distortion ranges are. And distortion within a speaker and a driver, it's hard to discern from the actual input levels. Like if you're listening to a guy playing the guitar, they may have added so much distortion into the mix when they're creating that sound. How do you know if you added 1% more that it really changed the way it sounds? You can't discern as was that speaker distortion or was that the way it really sounded? Because it's really in the harmonics.
Yeah.
It's, and the harmonics are kind of subsets of the original signal, and it's hard to tell if that's there or not. Now, if you start overdriving a speaker, it'll compress and go into all kinds of distortions. Then distortion is a big deal. And it's the same with a receiver, an amplifier. As soon as you're running out of headroom, the distortion just all of a sudden ramps way up. That's when distortion's a problem. But if it's within that range down, it's really hard to discern those harmonics from the music harmonics. So that's the reason I don't take a lot of distortion measurements. Also, taking them in a room is really, really hard because you're trying to measure something that's at the same level as the room noise, which is difficult to do. It's like trying to mic up a guy in a restaurant that's across the room and you just want to hear his voice, but everybody else is talking.
Good luck.
Yeah, it's hard to measure distortion. You get in an anechoic chamber where now you've got levels that are down to like 20 dB or something. Then you can pick those out.
Yeah.
And it's separate. But there's stuff like the Clipple that'll take a whole bunch of measurements, and what it's really doing is extrapolating that distortion, and it's trying to electronically say this was late arrival, this was not late arrival, and trying to separate it. And you can get a pretty good measurement on it, but it still really doesn't tell you anything. It doesn't tell you anything about sound quality, not until you overdrive it. When those levels start coming up, it's pretty easy to hear. But hearing the difference between like 1% and 2%, it's like a tube amp. You look at the harmonic distortions of a lot of tube amps, they could be 1%.
Oh, yeah.
Whereas the solid state, it might be 0.005.
Nothing.
Nothing. And then back in the day, it was like a battle of marketing. It's like, ours is 0.01, ours is 0.001. Yeah. You're like, oh, that must sound better. No,
it doesn't. It's not telling you
There's
anything.
So many other factors that are so much bigger in electronics and in speakers, so not that big a deal.
All right, guys, we're coming up. I can't even believe it. We're coming up to 2 hours. I thought we're going to be
serious.
Yeah, we're coming up to 2 hours. It goes by fast, huh?
It's gone by fast. I think we've probably got a lot more of these to go through. Probably.
I know. I don't think we're going to get to all of these, so we're going to button this up, do a couple more questions. We'll do some cherry picking.
You should be reading those while I'm talking.
I know. I was curious what you were going to have to say, though. Okay, this is a good one more for me because I actually have been curious about these speakers, and I reached out to them, and I am going to get a pair. Somebody is asking, they're asking you, have you ever upgraded the Dennis Murphy's Philharmonic audio speakers?
No, I've known Dennis. Dennis has been around for a long, long time, and he's pretty up in his years.
Yeah.
And he designs based on axis responses.
Yeah.
And it'll have a flat on axis response. Now, if you move up or down, it may fall apart.
Yeah.
And he doesn't believe in high quality parts. So we've sent Dennis Sonicaps. I can remember when he did a Sonicap versus a Solon shootout, and there was 10 people there, and 9 of the 10 all picked the Sonicaps, blind. Yeah. And the 10th guy just didn't want to go out on a limb and say one way or another. And Dennis still,
nope, not for me.
No,
not buying it.
And that was a long time ago.
Yeah.
So I know that there's probably some improvements that could be made on the inside of him. And Dennis is a nice guy. He's a musician, performed in orchestras and stuff, and he's been designing this stuff as a hobbyist basically for a really long time. And he did a lot of design work for Jim Sock. For Sock audio speakers for quite some time.
Oh, that's cool. I didn't know that.
Yep. So yeah, there's probably some things left there on the table, but no one's ever sent any of them to me.
I'll be getting in. I've always been curious about the BMR model, and they're going to send me a pair of those to check out. So that should be, relatively soon to check those out. Let's take a look here.
What was that one?
Oh, sorry, guys. Give me a second here. It just kind of freaked out on me.
Yeah, it just went. Boop.
Oh, it says, "Hi, Danny. You're a fan from Singapore. Barney, could you tell me more about the new speaker you are co-developing with Ron? The specs. Can you give the specs?"
Wow. Yeah, specs are about 85.5 dB sensitivity. Easy, about a 6 ohm load.
Yeah.
Yep. So nothing crazy.
Yeah. In-room response. I'm down to about 45, flat down to about 45 in-room in terms of
You know,
bass, and they play all the way out to
and
20K.
Ron took some measurements in his room, and were they the flattest measuring speaker you've ever measured, or one?
By far.
Like,
they're
really, really accurate.
Yeah, I can't wait to show it because it's like just a
Flat line.
it's like a flat line.
Even my measurements, semi-anechoic, it's just a flat line.
Literally a flat line. It's crazy. Yeah. Let's take a look here. Hey, Danny, make sure you talk to Killian about putting some instructions in with the flat packs. The on-wall surrounds were tricky.
Those are tricky ones.
I'm the one that broke mine. I was able to fix it, though.
Okay, I'm glad you was able to fix it. Most of those flat packs are pretty intuitive, but that one is a little more complex. I'll ask Killian about that. Maybe we can do a little video on how to assemble that stuff or something.
All right, guys, I think we're going to close up shop here. Does anybody have any pressing, super important questions that they're like, please let me just ask this one question because I think we're going to call it a night if not, unless somebody has something really important. Let's just take a look here. Joel is asking, hello from Sweden. Is there any way to get help with a crossover without sending 55 kilogram speaker across the world?
That's a good question. I get asked it a lot. It's kind of like, can you fix my car for me? And I say, yeah, I can fix your car, but your car has to be here for me to fix your car. I can't work on it without it being here.
It's not going to work.
I need to measure the actual output of the speaker and see what it's doing. So,
Ryan Lewis asked, is there a performance benefit to lower sensitivity speakers? As an example, 94 versus 84 decibels.
Like, is there a performance advantage by going to lower sensitivity?
Yeah, lower or higher. No. I've heard a lot of people, I feel like, making up a bunch of garbage about this. Like,
I know
clips are great because they're so sensitive, and I'm like, yeah, they're not as sensitive as you think.
I know they overinflate those measurements so much. But like the Bully is legit 94 dB sensitivity.
Yeah.
So without a lot of power,
oh yeah,
they get really loud, and they'll eat power. Like, you can feed them a lot. What do we have of those tier amps in here from?
Oh yeah, the shit audio tiers.
Those had quite a bit of power.
200 and something watts.
We were driving those into those Bullies, and they just ate that stuff up. So high sensitivity speakers, they can give you all that little bit greater range and dynamics in some regards, because sometimes they can actually play louder. If you need something to play that loud, like most of the stuff we're geeking out on right now, we're not playing all that loud.
No,
like we're geeking out on this sound stage and where things are, and like, holy crap, that was over there and over there, and we listened to something that I'd heard you play it quite a bit, and it had a choir kind of in the background of it, and suddenly we were hearing the voices in the choir,
individual.
Like, holy crap, you can hear their individual voices, and I had not noticed that before. It just sounded like a choir. So we're geeking out on other stuff, I guess.
All right, let's see here. Got a random quick one. Have acquired an old school Triad dual side fire 10-inch with a fuse. Cones move fine, but can't find specs at all. Could you point me in the direction of troubleshooting a new fuse?
I don't know about troubleshooting a new fuse, but
I don't know.
You have to check and see if that fuse is blown or not. If you need specs, I mean, worst case scenario, you can always send me a driver and I can measure the specs.
Yeah. What's the go-to place to buy JB polycaps from?
GR Research.
Yeah, there you go.
We ordered almost every value in restock. And when I say I ordered a lot of them, I ordered about 10 or 20,000 caps. I mean, we ordered a lot,
a lot of caps.
A lot of caps of area. And I have more on the way right now. I just placed another order with them for a lot more of them. So as far as a budget polycap, those are the best that I found. They sound better than all the Solon cap that are made the same. The Daytons, the Axon, any of them that we've used in the past, as far as those budget level caps. And it's sometimes in the woofer circuit, especially.
Yeah.
You need a bigger value. You need a 75 mic cap, 100 mic cap. You don't want to use an electrolytic cap, and you don't want to start stacking sonic caps in there that are, $80 or $90 a piece to try and make a big value. And there's a good place for those caps.
Yeah. All right, last question, and this is a great one. What decibel level are you usually listening at? This is a great question. I think a lot of guys out there think that they're listening way louder than what they're actually listening.
Mhm.
It cracks me up when they're like, "Oh, hey, what speaker do you recommend I can play up to 100 dB?" And I'm like, "Well, I would recommend that you don't.
Yeah.
You
It's funny,
don't
my
do that."
buddies and I, we went to the symphony. My wife and I, we went here to the local symphony, and they covered an entire array of John Williams music, and it was fantastic. And Hobbs was with me, and we looked at each other afterwards, and we thought, when we're trying to recreate the symphony, we're recreating it a lot louder
Way louder than
than it
what the
really
actual
was.
symphony is.
The actual symphony in that completely treated room was not near as loud as we were trying to recreate it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say 85
Yeah.
dB maybe
Maybe.
on average, and maybe 90 on the high side. There
Yeah.
are times we get carried away, and I'll throw in a drum solo, and it'll be 90 plus, 95, 98 dB peaks, no problem. But
Yeah.
I don't listen that loud at a regular basis at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
All right. Well, Danny, I want to say thanks for hanging
I
out.
can't believe
We
you
just
said
knocked
this was
out
2 hours. I thought it's coming
Yeah.
up on an hour, maybe.
2 hours, man.
That's crazy.
It's fun.
I told my wife I'll be home in about an hour or so. Don't worry.
You lied to her.
I lied. Yeah. You're probably starting to call my cell phone right now
Yeah.
that I never carry.
Yeah. All right, guys. Thank you so much. If you're not subscribed to GR Research channel, make sure that you do that. And thank you for supporting
Yeah,
us.
we should do this more often.
Yeah, we should. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, a lot of people are watching, so
Yeah. Cool.
answer questions.
Cool. All right, guys. Have a great night. We'll talk to you soon. Take care.
See you in the next one.
Bye-bye.
Wow.